All right, welcome into a happy post-game show. Dance class presented by Burger Smokehouse every night after Missouri basketball. The Tigers tonight an 81-70 winner over South Carolina. Before we get going with your comments, your calls, anything you guys want to say, want to pay a couple bills, and for that we want to thank Burger Smokehouse, who presents this show every single night after every single Missouri basketball game the rest of the season. Burgers is a third and fourth generation family-owned and operated business out of California, Missouri. All kinds of smoked meats. They've got ribs, they've got turkey, they've got ham, they've got bacon, they've got pulled pork, they've got brisket. They've probably got some other stuff. You can get it at most grocery stores across the state of Missouri. Hy-Vee, Price Chopper, Deerbergs, Schnucks, CNR, Woods. There's a lot of them. Go check them out. They have been great partners to us. They fed me a few times during football and basketball season. They will do the same for you. Appreciate you guys being here on the post-game show. Mizzou 81, South Carolina 70 tonight. Missouri now 9-2 on the season, 3-2 in the Southeastern Conference. Things looking a little bit more wide open because of things like Florida 75, Tennessee 49. Missouri certainly in the upper half of the Southeastern Conference standings right now. They've got a chance to be higher than that. So the way this works is we're building up some comments over here in the chat. I appreciate that. We're certainly going to take those, address those as we go along. After Cuonzo Martin's press conference, which I'm going to play here in just a minute, we're going to open up the phone lines. We'll take your calls. Basically, we're here for as long as you guys want to talk about Missouri basketball. Jeremiah Tillman, great. Mark Smith, really good again. Drew Smith did what Drew Smith does, really solid, filled up the stat sheet. And Missouri got a win, which was never really in doubt. They took the lead 53 seconds in. They led 10-0. And South Carolina was rarely closer. I think they maybe got within 5 or 6 at one point in the first half, but it was never any closer than that. It was never a one-possession game after it was 10-0, which is good. Low stress is a nice thing to have for you guys, for us, I'm sure for Cuonzo Martin. We did talk to the coach after the game, so I want to play that for you guys. It's about a 10, 12-minute press conference. We'll play that. We'll come back. We'll take your comments, your questions, your calls, all that here on the Dance Class.
Good, tough win. All around, I think, good team effort. It's one of those games, of course, cliche, you got to finish the game, but this is one of those games where you have to finish the game, especially when they have 5 perimeter guys out there making plays, attacking the rim. And I thought Jeremiah, this is his best game, in my opinion, when a team goes small and moving his feet, guarding smaller guys. I thought Anderson came in, gave him big minutes. Jeremiah did a great job posting, keeping balls alive, rebounding, making the next play. So, and I also happy to see Mark shooting the ball well, but he was ready to shoot before. As soon as the ball was coming, he was ready to shoot the ball, and so that was good.
All right, we'll go to questions. Joel?
Hey, Coach. This is Mark Smith's second game in double figures since the 4th game of the season, and his best game since non-conference play. What went into, his confidence today, and did you tell him anything different before the game?
No. I don't think his confidence has gone anywhere, even in previous games. One, it's our job to get him in position to score the ball, but more importantly, it's his job to be shot ready when it presents itself, because as a really good shooter, you're not going to get always clean looks, but you have to be ready to shoot the ball. And he was ready to shoot the ball tonight. And I thought he was ready to shoot it the last game. It just didn't go in. But he was ready to shoot it tonight. And again, like we talk about it all the time, ready to shoot, then you attack off the dribble when it presents itself. But don't have in your mind preconceive what you'll do before the ball gets to you. If you're open, shoot the ball. And he did that.
Sorry, Coach. As a follow-up, sorry if you don't mind. Kind of play where he hit after that first three, and he curled off the high screen and pulled a moving three. Did you draw that up? Do you give him that kind of green light or what?
Oh, you got the green light as a three-point. All of them got the green light to do what they do. I mean, if you do it in practice, you have the green light to do it in the game.
Ben Arnett?
Konzo, your team playing with the lead tonight. I mean, obviously you jumped out to a lead, and every time Carolina, knowing that they were going to make runs, you're able to repel them. What did you see from your team in those moments where they were able to constantly keep the Gamecocks at bay all night, play with the lead?
Just being strong because they're a team that they have really good drivers. I mean, you're talking about two high-level scorers in Lawson and Cousineau, and I thought our guards did a tremendous job. Of course, you have one-on-one assignments, but it's also team help. So another guy might get a shot here and there, but you don't want those two guys to get off. But we didn't do a very good job with Brian and Mania keeping those guys off the glass as four men. But other than that, I thought we did a great job as a team. But again, they'll drive, they'll make plays, they keep balls alive with their offense. I thought we did a good job with our transition defense, and we were better in the second half.
Dave Matter.
Konzo, I know you never take Jeremiah's production for granted, but is he at the point now where you expect this every night and he's that reliable?
I hope so. I think, like some guys, the opponent is the competition. I think Jeremiah's opponent is Jeremiah. And I said it with all due respect and grace. It's just a matter of him understanding who he is as a player, his talent level, his physicality. And then the other part is the wisdom over a course of, almost 4 years now completed. And the bumps in the road, the journey in which, the pain, the struggles, the ups and downs, the highs and lows, he's learned from those lessons and he's grown from them. He embraced it, and sometimes you don't want to look in the mirror at some of those things to help you get better. But he's embraced that, and now you're starting to see the results of a talented big man.
Mitchell 40.
Konzo, you mentioned the transition defense. Did you all kind of beat South Carolina in the game as far as getting running that was kind of available? I guess, is that how different is it this season having a team that's comfortable, I guess, kind of running with a faster opponent and being able to take advantage of those opportunities?
Mitch, part of you cut off. You said is that, and I couldn't hear the rest.
Sorry. I guess, you all were able to get out and run even, with South Carolina or more so than them. How different is it, I guess, having a team that not only are you comfortable with them doing that, but they're able to execute on those opportunities?
Oh, it's good. I mean, but, that's something we've practiced when we started in September, just trying to get out and transition, take advantage of easy opportunities. It's crazy when I watch, like if I go back and watch film of when we played last year of opponents, just kind of see if you can catch some or see some. And we play so slow, it's like, man, why that looks, man, it's like, why did I coach that? Just because I wouldn't want to watch that now. I hope no fans heard that, but no, it's just you want to get up and down and play. You want to have some excitement, and the key is you have to continue to grow in that role and how you play that way, that pace you play. But you got to still be tough defensively to get stops. You got to try to play on both ends and play hard. Now, might not hold teams of 50 points and all that, but you got to still be tough and do the things you need to do to win the game. But I like playing this way. I want our guys to get out and transition. We got to continue to cut down the careless turnovers. But I like the way we play.
Zawuchi.
Konzo, obviously, we see the points with Jeremiah and the rebounds, but are there just small parts of this game that he's still just kind of improving that you kind of see from day to day, game to game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you watch him, versus the double. It used to be, 3 straight years, somebody double him. The first thing he do, he dribbles out and away from the rim to avoid the double. Now you see him, he put his chest toward the rim, and he's aggressive and he's strong with the ball. And that's hard to guard. I mean, and he's a good free throw shooter. So you making free throws, you're scoring around the rim. Now you other guys have opportunities to get offensive rebounds, to get clean looks from three. And I've always envisioned our team to be able to throw the ball inside to him, to play off of him. So now guys can get clean threes. We don't have to force three-point shots because of the way teams defend him.
Colin.
Hey, Konzo, do you have an update on X for us?
I think he's fine right now, but I hadn't talked to the doctors. I'm assuming he's fine. He finished the game, so that's all I have right now.
Eric Blum.
Konzo, you said on Saturday that it was Kobe Brown's best game of his time in Columbia. Was tonight more of the same?
After tonight?
Was tonight kind of a replicate performance from what you saw on Saturday?
I thought he could have been better defensively, meaning, keeping an eye and And Brian off the glass, I thought he could have been better there. Because he had a tough assignment keeping Miller off the glass against A&M, which is a tough. And so I thought he could have been a little bit better. I mean, he's a talented player, yes, but it's still work to do.
Ben Hockman.
Hey, Konzo, I know tonight's game is on the brain, but when you look forward to Tennessee, how can this new, if you will, next level Jeremiah play better or differently against Tennessee than the previous game?
Well, I mean, Tennessee's a talented team. I think they had a tough loss tonight at Florida, but they're a talented team. Again, like I said, Jeremiah's opponent is Jeremiah because he's physically strong. If it's one-on-one down the post, I mean, it'd be tough for most teams. It's just he's making good decisions. He's sound with the ball. He's reading the double team. He's finding open men. He's rebounding at a high level. That's a hard matchup for any guy one-on-one. So that means you have to have multiple guys to help you, and that's where we have to do a better job of offensive rebounding. Kobe, Mitch, Javon, those guys, if they have two around Jeremiah hovering, those guys have to do their job and get offensive rebounds.
Dave Matter.
Konzo, was a fast start critical tonight? I mean, the way that South Carolina's been through a lot lately, they played a late game Saturday on the road, and was that important for you?
I heard you say South Carolina road. Was that important?
Just everything they've been through lately, and they coming off a tough road loss Saturday night. It was a hot start, a good start, really critical for you.
Oh, without question. Get up and down the floor, make plays, get to the rim, put pressure on them, because the way they play, if you go east and west, it'll be a long night for you. You got to attack downhill against these guys because they're so physical. They switch out high. They have you passive. You got to get downhill and force the referee to make calls. If not, it'll be a long night for you.
Mitchell.
I think this was the most we've seen of Drew Buggs, at least since conference play started. What did you think of what he was able to give you tonight?
Thought he did a good job directing traffic as usual. I mean, I thought he did. Facilitated, got the ball where it needed to go, was strong with the ball, did a solid job defending, just as a leader. And I thought he did a good job playing within himself and playing his role.
Colin?
Hey, Konzo, you mentioned Minaya and AJ a little bit, but just what did you guys do so well defensively with them tonight? They were both averaging double figures coming into the game, and they combined for 11.
Again, you have one-on-one assignments, but more than that, it's a team defense. When those guys have the ball, you have to have all eyes on those guys to make tough plays, tough decisions, to make them take tough pull-ups, pitch the ball to other guys. But you don't want those guys getting clean looks. And I thought Lawson had 2 clean looks in the first half from 3. Just didn't go in. But in the second half, I thought we did a great job of just staying on top of them, making them take back cuts, kind of corralling them into Jeremiah or Mitch if they're at the center position. And then Cousineau is a guy that makes plays off the dribbling, and he did some of it late within the last 2 or 3 minutes. And just chest to chest, keep him in front of you, make him take tough shots.
Time for 2 more. Mason and Corte will be our last 2 questions. Mason?
Hey, Coach. So there have been a couple of games this season where you've had really big runs early. How do those fast starts sort of change the flow of the game?
I think you said we had a fast start. How does it change the flow of the game? I think it's helpful. It gives you confidence. You make shots. And for some reason, sometimes when you're making shots like that, your defense looks good. So I think it's helpful.
And the last question for Konzo comes to Corte.
Hey, Coach. So the Gamecocks grabbed 20 offensive rebounds tonight. The team played great, but what does that statistic indicate to you?
Plenty of work to do. I saw it up close. Just plenty. We got to put. And again, it's just they had tremendous effort, and that's what they do. And the thing with them, you're talking about, especially the main 2 guys, 6'6" athletes. It's not like they, 6'10", 250 pounds. They were relentless, keeping balls high. And Brian is at his size, one of the best I've seen at slashing and getting offensive rebounds. But we have to be better. We have to be better.
Coach, congratulations. We'll let you go.
All right, so Konzo Martin, after an 81-70 win over South Carolina, that was, I mean, Missouri would stretch it out to 15, 16, and then South Carolina would get it back maybe to 9 or 10. Missouri would stretch it back out. Missouri led the last 39 minutes and 7 seconds of this game, most of the time by double figures. probably as complete a game as Missouri has played thus far. And what we want to do right now, I want to put this number up there. That's where you guys get in touch with us. Call the show. Hang on, I got to make sure I can fit it on the screen. Call the show at 573-234-4935. That's where you get in touch with us. And we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I would assume you want to talk about tonight's game. Jeremiah Tillman, maybe Mark Smith, maybe Drew Smith, maybe Xavier Pinson. I know we've got comments in the chat about all of that, but it would help if I would open the Skype line. So the Skype line is now open. If you've been trying to call, you can now call. It's at 573-234-4935. So that's my fault. I didn't have Skype open, but it will work now. So please call us. We'll talk about whatever you guys would like to talk about. Jeremiah Tillman now 4 consecutive games, 19 points, 9 rebounds. Over that span. He had 19 and 10 tonight, but he's averaging 19 and 9 for the last 4 games. We're going to go now to the phone line. We got the 908 area code. Who am I talking to?
What's up, Gabe? It's Schiff.
What's up, Schiffer? How you doing, man?
I've had a very long week, but I was able to tune in a little bit tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've not had to cover the biggest trade, in college basketball can't make trades, so I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I guess if that transfer rule gets passed,
Right.
I mean, you might see some stuff that looks like that a little bit, right? Or was that a stretch?
Yeah, no, it's free agent market. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't lose the viewership. Xavier Pinson has not played well lately. I would not go pro if I were him because I don't know what team would want him right now. How crazy am I?
Here's the thing, though. You were here. I can't remember when you left, but we were hearing after last season that Pinson might go pro. And I think he just kind of wants to go, whether it's NBA or not. Now, maybe they can talk him into staying another year if he's not going to get drafted in the NBA, because I don't see, you cover the NBA. Is there anybody in the NBA that's his size?
Yes, but they also have something they can hang their hat on. I look at this isn't going to go well bringing this name up in Missouri fans, but right, Chris Chioza, he's on the Nets because the team I cover. He's 5'9", more limited defensively than X, but he's a phenomenal passer, and he understands coming into the game that his job is to set up the other 4 guys. I think X could easily have a role like that, like Chris Chioza, but the problem is that if X is going to hang his hat on passing, he's still throwing the ball to marching Mizzou, it seems like, the few times I tune in. And so I feel like he needs a Jeremiah Tillman cleanse of come back a year and prove that, your demons are behind you, and whether he's got to dig a hole in the middle of Mizzou Arena and shout into it or something, I don't know. But I think he could have a role. I just think that he's done himself no favors to sell himself on that.
Here's his other problem as a pro. He's a 24% three-point shooter from college distance. And that's, he's not much above that. He's under 30 for his career. So if he's not going to make jump shots, I mean, he makes a living in college basketball, getting in the lane, being faster than everybody. And he's got nice moves, but I don't know that translates in the NBA. I don't know if he can blow by guys on the perimeter in the NBA the way he does here. So you've got to be able to make a shot. And I think another year would do him good. And look, I'm not sure he's ever an NBA player. But also, I've covered a lot of guys over time that, they're just kind of done with school and they just want to move on. And maybe that's him. I don't know.
And point guards come a dime a dozen in the pros, whether it's the NBA or Europe or somewhere else. I mean, there's always a boatload of them. That's the other thing he's got, which is why I feel like he needs something to hang his hat on, and I just don't know what that is.
Well, if he comes back next year, he can probably lead the team in scoring, I would think. So maybe that's
true.
his thing.
That's true.
All right, man. Well, pretty good to hear from you.
Yeah, you two have a boulevard in your honor now.
All right. Well, good deal. I'm having water, so I'm glad somebody's having a boulevard.
Someone's got to make the sponsorship money for you, right?
You got it, man. Appreciate it, Schiff. Have a good one, bud.
You too, man.
All right. That is, for those who don't know, you should all know, that was Alex Schiffer. Appreciate him kicking off the calls. Schiff covered hoops and hoops recruiting for us for a couple years, worked for the Kansas City Star for a couple years. He now covers the New Jersey Nets. So should you have an interest in reading about Kyrie and James Harden and Kevin Durant and I guess Chris Chiozza, that's the only other player I now know on that team. But follow Schiff over at The Athletic covering the Nets. So, but look, we've got a couple more questions about Pinson and a couple, Lucas brings up the point that since we have to complain about something each game and Mark Smith finally scored today, can we move on to how X has been playing recently? He hasn't looked great this week, and today only shot it 3 times. So I would say a few things. First of all, you're right. He hadn't been great this week. There's no question. He's had a couple of rough games in a row. Hasn't played really well. Wasn't all that good in the A&M game, and actually sat most of the second half in that game. And Drew Buggs played most of the second half. In this game, I didn't notice. I was working on 2 or 3 things, and frankly, it wasn't a close game, so I zoned out for a few minutes in the second half, so I didn't notice how much he was out there and how much it was Drew Buggs, specifically in the second half. But they both ended the game with 19 minutes played. And, X did take the Javon Pickett knee to the back of the head. I think that was in the first half. But did come back from that, obviously. No concussion or anything like that. So you're right. The ultimate point is you're right. He hasn't played very well the last 2 games. But other guys have. It's not going to be the same guy every night. There's going to be a time, maybe as soon as Saturday, where Xavier Pinson leads this team in scoring or has 8 assists, or it comes and goes in basketball. I think it's different guys every night. So Pinson has shown me enough over the last 2 years that I don't think it's a big concern. Hey, he's not playing great right now, but he will. He'll have nights. And again, you've won 3 out of 4, 2 in a row. So, I think it's not anything. And I appreciate kind of the sarcastic tone there from Lucas, but I don't think it's anything to be too concerned about at this point. Todd Julian wants to know, Tillman is playing better for Mizzou than any center since when? Is it really Stipo? It is certainly not Stipo. The first guy that came to mind, the most recent guy, I should say, not the first guy. The most recent guy that you could make an argument would be Alex Oriaki. He not his entire season here, but he had like a 6-game stretch where he shot like 85% from the field, and that's really not an exaggeration. It was late in the season when it was the year that Missouri ended up being an 8 or a 9 seed and played Colorado State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And I specifically remember it because going into the NCAA tournament, he was on this ridiculous streak over 6 games. It was something like 31 out of 36 or something like that from the floor. And then he barely touched the ball against Colorado State. And I just remember thinking that whole game, like, why does he have 2 shots? What's going on here? So Oriaki did for a stretch about like Tillman has. He never put up, he didn't quite average like 20 points a game, but he played really well. The last big man that I remember just like being a dominant big man for Missouri was Arthur Johnson. I think he is one of the most underrated players in Missouri basketball history, and I don't know if it's because he played with Ricky Paulding and played on some teams with other good players, and then played on a team his senior season that underachieved. But AJ, I felt like never got the. It also might have been because he just didn't look like he was going to be a great player. Like he didn't look super athletic. He was a big dude. But he's never gotten the appreciation I think he deserves. He's top 10 in school history in rebounds. I think he still has the block shot record by like a bunch. So definitely Arthur Johnson is the gold standard for like the last 20 years. But Oriaki had a stretch like this, and Ratliff wasn't really a center. I mean, I know he played center on that team, but he was more of like a 4 playing the 5. But I think people forget how good that senior season was. Like most of that senior season, he was on pace to break the national record for shooting percentage. And the main reason he was because, Phil Pressey was just setting him up like 6 inches from the basket. I don't think he ever shot a shot that wasn't a dunk or a layup. So, those are definitely the guys that are in the discussion. And Tillman's playing great. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to take anything away from what he's doing, but let's now see it extend. Hey, it's 4 games, so can you do it for 6? Can you do it for 8? Can you do it for the rest of your senior season? And most importantly, can you do it in meaningful games? Because like Ryan Rosberg went on a tear the last 8 games or whatever of his career, but Missouri wasn't playing for anything. And so it didn't mean quite as much, I think. All the negativity toward Tillman, he deserves at least a few days of praise. And, yeah, I've said this a few times about Tillman over the last couple weeks. I think part of the reason he does get some of the, I don't want to call it hate, but some of the negativity is because people know this is in there. Like, he's done this at times before. Now, he's never done it 4 games in a row. This is the first time we're seeing that. But, this has been in there because you've seen it here and there for the last 3.5 years. And people have always wondered, what if this ever came out consistently? What would Missouri have here? And you're finding out what they would have is, like an all SEC level player. I think if the vote is taken today, I think Jeremiah Tillman is first team all SEC. I don't know that he is the SEC player of the year because I just haven't looked around quite enough at the rest of the league and some of the individuals. But I think he's definitely first team all SEC. And what you also have is a team that is playing for something now. They're playing for meaningful things. Right now, I looked up the league standings, so I'm going to jump back to them here real quick. Alabama is 6-0 in the league. They are about to go 7-0 because they are absolutely destroying LSU. Tennessee is 4-2 after losing to Florida. Mississippi State is 4-2, but losing to Ole Miss right now. So if Mississippi State loses that game at 3-2, Missouri and Kentucky are tied for 4th in the league, guys. Like, I know there was a little bit of panic here and there, right? Everything's going wrong. What's happening? Well, Missouri actually is 17 minutes in Starkville away from being 4th place in this league. And, now they get Tennessee on Saturday. Things haven't gone well in Knoxville this week. It's been a tough time for the Vols athletic programs. And then they're at Auburn, and they've got some games here coming up that are going to kind of determine how this season goes. So they're in a good position. We talked about Saturday and tonight being games that they needed to win to put themselves in position to do something important. They've done that. Tillman deserves credit. Mark Smith, who we haven't talked about yet, I think there are probably some comments about him. We haven't talked about him quite yet, but Mark Smith found his jumper tonight, 3 3-pointers, 5 of 9, I think, from the floor, 5 of 6 from the free throw line, the most points he's had since Wichita State, which was the 3rd game of the year. Drew Smith looks like he's back to playing the way he has normally played. Missouri shot 58% from the field. Tigers took 13 3-pointers. That's the game, guys. That's their game plan. That's how this team needs to play. They shot 65% from 2-point range. Went 5 of 13 from 3. That's great. That's a perfect number for this team. Went to the free throw line 30 times. Only hit 20. If there were 2 things in this game that they could have been better, free throw shooting is 1. South Carolina got a lot of offensive rebounds, as you heard Konzo say at the end. But, hey, Missouri had it in control the whole time. And if anybody out there wants to talk about it, 573-234-4935. Feel free to give me a call. But until then, or in absence of that, I'm going to roll through some of your comments. I know we've got a lot of people here in the chat that have been hanging out. Steve P says, last week we had 2 real players. The last few games we've had 6 players that were good. Yeah, I think Kobe Brown's been pretty good the last 2 games. Pickett was good last game. I didn't notice him as much tonight. Drew Buggs has been good. This team is still going to, I think, be driven by you need Tillman, you need Drew Smith. Like, those guys need to be good on a regular basis. And then either Tillman or Mark Smith has to be that kind of third guy. Doesn't have to be the same one every night, but one of those guys is the most likely. And then you get Mitchell Smith to play his role, and Javon Pickett to play his role, and Kobe Brown to play his role, and Drew Buggs to play his role, and there's your rotation. It's an 8-man rotation. That's your guys. Everybody kind of knows their role on the team. And it is a team that I think Tillman's the guy that it runs through, and he's the most important guy. But it has 4 or 5 different guys who can score 15 to 20 on a night, right? Like, Javon Pickett's not going to score 15 to 20 every night, but he's done it. Kobe Brown's not going to score 15 to 20 every night, but he's done it. Mark Smith is capable of scoring 15 to 20 every night. He's not going to do it every night, but he's capable. Same with Drew Smith, same with Pinson, same with Tillman. So, I think he's got 5 or 6, really good options, and then a couple guys that just really know their roles, and Mitchell Smith and Drew Buggs. Like, I don't think Mitchell Smith or Drew Buggs is ever going to score 15 points this year, but they know their roles, and that's a very important thing. And Konzo knows their roles. He has settled into a rotation much earlier in the season than he normally settles into one. Jared says, like the way the team's playing, need to get X going, but think Buggs has done a really nice job the last couple of games, seems to be looking more comfortable. I agree. I mean, he actually scored tonight, so that was something. But beyond that, he's been a steady presence out there, right? When X has been a little up and down the last couple games, Buggs has been a steady guy, just kind of run the show, direct traffic, set guys up, and take a shot if it's there. But I think he took 2 shots tonight. He made one. It was kind of that circus shot back over his head when he was getting fouled. But that's never going to be his role. He's not a double-figure scorer for this team. Maybe he was at Hawaii, but he's not for this team. So, I've been impressed with the way he's playing too. Mark Robinson wants to know, is there any way Torrance Watson can resurrect his career at Mizzou? Yeah, I mean, next year, and like, look, there might be times this year, guys get in foul trouble, guys get hurt, guys miss a game, whatever. Like, Torrance might play a role, might make some big plays for this team this year. But as far as being a big scorer and, a guy that's playing 25 minutes a game, that's probably next year. And he seems to be a good teammate and happy and always up for his team on the floor. He's always smiling on the bench, all that. So I don't see any reason to think he wouldn't stay. Other than we know what college sports are these days, and a transfer's not out of the question. But if he sticks around, I mean, he's going to start for this team next year, I would think. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Let's see. Yeah, T-Rise, is it good to get out to a fast start? Yeah, it's good. Yeah, sometimes questions are pretty easy to answer, right? Cam says halfway through year 4, we finally gotten a consistent Jeremiah Tillman. Yeah, and you guys have been waiting for it. God knows Konzo's been waiting for it, no question. David Dowell says Frank Martin seemed unusually mild-mannered tonight. I tell you what, and this is look, I'm a big Frank Martin fan, have been for years. I know guys that have covered him that absolutely love him, going back to Kansas State, and so I've always been a big fan of his. But I've listened to Frank talk a few times on the SEC teleconference and stuff this year, and I will tell you, he is a coach that has this thing in perspective, right? He's had COVID twice. You saw, obviously, his hair was falling out, got alopecia. I think it's kind of related to that. And so shaved his head. His team went 3 weeks without practicing. Like, he's got this in perspective. Sure, he wants to win games. He wants to win every game he plays. But he also understands what this year is and understands that, hey, man, our team has been dealing with some stuff. I mean, they played 3 games, and then they were off for almost a month. So he gets where his team's at and that it's going to take a minute, and he has basketball in the proper perspective. For the record, I think Konzo Martin does too. I've been really impressed with how both of those guys have approached it. Hey, they want to win. They're not gonna sugarcoat that. That's their job, all that. But, and we said this before football season, this year is different. The main goal is to finish. And I understand in the heat of the moment, like, you want your team to win, and you're not thinking about all the weird stuff that's going on in the offseason and all that, and fans are not going to cut any slack, and they don't care. But the truth of the matter is this year is different, and winning is a little less important than just playing. I mean, that's, and Frank Martin's had a great perspective on that. He's had some health issues of his own. I know he has had multiple friends pass away from this, and I've enjoyed listening to Frank, and so I think that's probably a part of it. I think it translates to the bench and in the way he acts probably during games. Isaac says one negative tonight was, again, turnovers, but if we turn the other team over as well and get transition points, we can survive. So this is pretty interesting. I was looking at the box score before we started this. So Missouri had more turnovers. They had 19 turnovers. South Carolina had 13. In the first half, that number was even, I think 9 apiece. South Carolina actually didn't turn it over much in the second half. But Missouri had 6 more turnovers. Off of Missouri's 19 turnovers, South Carolina scored 18 points. Off of South Carolina's 13 turnovers, Missouri scored 23 points. So Missouri was phenomenal at converting those turnovers, whether they were in transition or just in a half-court set. Basically, Missouri got 6 fewer turnovers than South Carolina got, and they scored 5 more points off of them. So incredibly efficient for Missouri. Basically, every time South Carolina turned the ball over, Missouri scored about 1.8 points. Every time Missouri turned the ball over, South Carolina scored 0.95 points. So it's not a recipe, right? It's probably not always going to happen that way. But Isaac, what you said is kind of right. Yeah, too many turnovers, but if you're getting points off the other team's turnovers, that does mitigate it a little bit. And there you go, Jonah, with the Schiff shout out with the potential. Alex Schiffer's claim to fame is breaking the Porter possibility on our site, no question. All right, Dalton Barker from Sharky's Pub in Nevada, Missouri. I hope you really are in Nevada. That's awesome, Dalton. Again, obviously a G-Pits listener, so I appreciate that. And I've got family that they're no longer in Nevada, but they were for a long time. I spent some times in Nevada. All right, not engaging on a South Carolina win, especially versus a bald Frank Martin. I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if it means you're not going to get excited about this win, but, like, this is a good win. South Carolina they're a team that has tournament hopes and aspirations. This is, A.J. Lawson, preseason, I think, player of the year. Well, no, I'm sorry. That was Johnson down at Florida. But A.J. Lawson, preseason first-team All-SEC. Good player. Frank Martin's a good coach. South Carolina has tournament hopes this year. So this is a solid win. The last first-team All-SEC center at Missouri, Evan Bay, maybe? I don't think so, actually. No, they haven't had Missouri is, I'm pretty sure, not had an All-SEC big man. Last all-conference one, I would assume Ricardo Ratliff was, but I'd have to go back and look. But like we talked about, he wasn't exactly a senior. Okay, Dan points out that Missouri would be tied for 5th because Florida will be 5-3 after tonight. Maybe that's true. Maybe the standings I was looking at weren't updated, but I don't think that's accurate. I think Florida beat Tennessee tonight to get to 4-3. I'm gonna refresh I'm pretty sure because they have Missouri at 3-2. Florida has beaten Vanderbilt, LSU, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. They've lost to Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Alabama. So Florida's 4-3 in league play. Those standings are already updated. So Missouri would be tied for 4th if Mississippi State loses to Ole Miss. They are still down by 4 with 12.5 minutes left. I'm simply stunned by Alabama. I mean, 60 points in the first half, 73-44 right now. This is a team that they were 5-3 in the non-con. I mean, they didn't really even look very good in the non-conference. They were one of the most disappointing teams in the league, and now all of a sudden, I mean, they're unstoppable. They're about to go to 7-0 in this league, and they're just rolling people. So, yeah, and then Dan did follow up that I'd accounted for that. Sorry, Dan, didn't see the follow-up comment till I saw the first comment. Okay, if you could add any player from the past 5 years to this team, who would it be? I mean, can I pick a healthy Michael Porter? Because I think that's who you pick, clearly. But if I can't pick him, I pick Jonte. Putting him next to Tillman playing the way he's playing, you put Jonte out in the high post, Tillman in the low post, you got a heck of a combo there. Now, I know the tempting thing is probably to say Cassius Robertson for a great three-point shooter, and I get it, but no, I'd add Jonte because I think Jonte is the best all-around player that we've actually seen play for this team since Konzo has been here. Wasn't there talk that Frank Martin wanted to come to Mizzou when we hired K.A.? Frank Martin would have taken the Missouri job a couple of different times, no question. Okay, so Steve P. is asking for a defensive coordinator update. I know this is a basketball show, but we did put some news out on our message board earlier today, and so for those of you who maybe weren't on there and didn't see it, I assume most of our viewers here are Power Mizzou subscribers, but it's possible you weren't. So if you're tuning in here and you haven't seen it or don't subscribe, this is the kind of stuff you can get. And I know that there has since been another story out there, but it was about 3 o'clock this afternoon. I posted a name, and at that point I wasn't sure where things stood exactly, but I just wanted to put the name out there that I'd heard the name Steve Wilkes mentioned. And a lot of you guys may not know who Steve Wilkes is, because I had to kind of do some research myself. Well, he has not coached in college since 2004. He's been in the NFL since then. He's been a defensive backs coach. He's been a defensive coordinator for the Panthers, for the Browns. He was the Arizona Cardinals head coach in 2018. He went 3-13, so it wasn't a great year. And then he ended up getting fired because Arizona wanted to draft Kyler Murray, and they wanted to bring a coach in that ran the system that Kyler Murray would be good in. So they fired Steve Wilkes and hired Cliff Kingsbury. But I put on our board about 3 o'clock this afternoon, hey, I'm hearing this name. Don't know how much there is to it, but somebody mentioned the name. Well, asked a few questions over the next few hours, and I think I'm not going to say I don't know that he's the guy. I don't think a hire has been made. I don't think a decision has been made. I'm pretty comfortable saying he's definitely in the top handful, and I think he's the top target, to be quite honest with you. I think the goal is to know something by the end of the week, to have a hire made by the end of the week, I believe, from what I'm hearing. And if I had to guess tonight, I think the hope is that hire is Steve Wilkes. Now, hey, it's possible there's another name out there, another interview that was done that maybe they're still sorting through. Again, I don't think an offer has been made. I know an offer hasn't been accepted, but I do think Steve Wilkes is right up there. David Gibbs is involved, but I think Wilkes is the hope right now, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, he's going to have some options. He did not coach last year. After getting fired at Arizona, he was defensive coordinator for a year in Cleveland. Well, then Cleveland had a coaching change. When Kevin Stefanski came in, he brought in new guys on his staff, and I read a story, and Wilkes said, you know what, after 3 years of just kind of moving and all that, I'm going to take a year off because I want to make sure the next job I take is the right job where I can hang around for a while. Now, I know he's been tied to Ron Rivera. A job in Washington would not be impossible. I don't know where they stand. I mean, their defense was pretty good, so I don't know that they need a defensive coordinator. But NFL jobs are a possibility, I think, with him, especially with the way things are shaking out, with new coaches being hired different places and this and that. But if Eli Drinkwitz could convince him, to take the job in college, I mean, he's been a coach for 25 years. He's only 51 years old. He's coached multiple. He played at App State. He's coached multiple places in college. Again, not since 2004, but did have multiple college jobs before he went to the NFL. Has been all over the NFL. He was an NFL head coach, which I've got to imagine is a pretty impressive thing to be able to tell kids on the recruiting trail. And he was an NFL defensive coordinator and a pretty decent one with the Panthers. So that's the name we know. David Gibbs involved. Dave Matter, I think, reported that there are 3 candidates involved, so I'm not sure who the third one is. Could be another NFL guy because I've heard that the NFL is kind of where Drinkwitz might be looking. But, yeah, that's where things stand right now. So, Steve, appreciate you asking and hope you guys did all see that on our message board earlier today because, when you run a subscription website, we want the subscription to be worth something. I'm not trying to tweet out every piece of information we have. I put it on here because I appreciate you guys watching and hanging out with me late. But, I guess it's not that late. But not everything has to be tweeted out for the people who don't want to pay. So some of that stuff, that's the kind of stuff you find on our message board if you sign up. So hopefully you will. And Steve, appreciate the chance to do the ad there. Mizzou is looking like a solid 4 to 6 seed in the NCAA. That's where it would be as of today. I think they could play themselves up. They could play themselves down too. I would say as of now, you're looking 4 to 6. I think the ceiling is probably a 3. I guess there are ways maybe they could play themselves into a 2, but that'd have to really involve a heck of a run over the last month and a half of the season. And the floor is, look, if this team misses the NCAA tournament, it's borderline disaster. I mean, at 9-2, the way you're started, I mean, you should not be missing the NCAA tournament. So I guess the floor should be like a 9 or a 10. And I think even that would be disappointing. And Case says would love to have the Mississippi State game back, and I agree. I understand that, but like every team's going to have one of those, right? Alabama was 5-3 in the non-conference. LSU's getting beat by 32 points right now. Mississippi State's losing to an Ole Miss team that can't beat anybody. Tennessee got beat by 29 tonight. It's college basketball. Everybody has them, and I get it. It's frustrating. You don't want to have them, but you just do sometimes. It happens to almost everybody. It hadn't happened to Gonzaga. It hadn't happened to Baylor. But it's happened to almost everybody else. Okay. If polls stay true to form, Missouri, a win on Saturday should have Missouri ranked 21st. Hey, yeah, I was a little surprised Missouri dropped 2 spots this week, but I think it just had to do with they didn't play for a week, and then, they had – one win against, honestly, Texas A&M's a bad team. And so I think other teams just played more and probably, got a little bump out of that. But if they win Saturday, they'll be in the top 15. Might be in the top 10. I'm not sure. Dan brings up a good point. South Carolina played hard, and that's one reason Frank wasn't especially upset. I think that's probably fair to say, yeah. Tyler Wynn, glad to see you here. If Mark or X shoot well from 3, we have a chance to win at Tennessee. Why is a top 25 matchup not on ESPN? I mean, those are set before the season, and frankly, I don't think most people expected Missouri to be this good. I mean, they could move it around, I guess, if they wanted to. I don't even know what channel it's on. Probably SEC Network, I guess. But, yeah, any known previous, I assume that should be previous and not precious, connection between Wilkes and Drinkwitz. Yeah, David, actually Charlie Harbison was on Steve Wilkes' staff in Arizona in 2018. I believe he was the safeties coach. I can't remember for sure. But Charlie Harbison, who is a safeties coach at Mizzou, was on Steve Wilkes' staff with the Arizona Cardinals. So I think that's your connection. Now, Wilkes did play at Appalachian State, but like when he graduated, I think Drinkwitz was 5. So, I don't think there, it might have been 7, but I don't think there's any big connection there. Let's see. So, I am Case quoting John Rothstein. I don't feel great about that, but yeah, Bama really playing well. Cameron, what's the deal with the KU games the next couple years? I mean, they'll be played. I assume the whole series will just get moved back. I would think that next year would be at Sprint Center and technically be the KU home game, and then, then they'll do the rotating, Lawrence and Columbia and all that, and then the last one in, I don't know, whatever year that is, 6 years from whatever next year is, would be Missouri's home game in Kansas City. I think that's probably how it would work. So, yeah, Ole Miss now up 11 on Mississippi State in Starkville. So, again, see, guys, every team has a night like that, right? Mississippi State's having one right now, but Ole Miss getting a win that would bump Missouri up in the standings. Again, Mizzou will be tied for 4th if Mississippi State drops that game to Ole Miss. Tigers in action on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. against Tennessee, and appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll put the stats up there just one more time. We'll also thank Burger Smokehouse one more time. Burger Smokehouse does they are the official smokehouse of Mizzou Athletics. They are also the official smokehouse of our postgame show. I don't know. Well, I know which one of those I think is more important. I don't know which one they think is more important. I probably do, but I would prefer that they would think the same as I do. Anyway, Burger Smokehouse has, natural smoked meat. They only use natural smoke processes, no liquid, so you get the great taste in the bacon. The hickory smoked bacon is really good. The pulled pork, the ribs, I've had quite a bit of it. It's all really good. You pick it up at any grocery store. You can go to smokehouse.com and check them out there, get their stuff. They make this possible for us to do after every basketball game, and we're also doing it before every basketball game, which is kind of tied in, certainly. So appreciate Burger Smokehouse for making that possible. Appreciate you guys for hanging out here with me tonight. We'll be back on Saturday. Tip-off's at 7:30, so we'll start the pregame at 6:30. We'll do postgame later into the night. It's a weekend, so, we'll see. The bragging rights game on Saturday night was pretty lively, so we might have a little livelier postgame show than a ho-hum 81-70 win for Mizzou. But the Tigers do get the win. They go to 9-2, 3-2 in the league. Jeremiah Tillman, Mark Smith, Drew Smith, big nights. Easy win, easy show. Appreciate you guys being here. Plenty more to come on Power Mizzou, so we will catch up next time.